The rain hammered against the kitchen window like bullets against glass, each drop a tiny explosion that made my shoulders flinch. I'd been on my feet for 14 hours, and the ache had traveled from my heels up through my calves, settling deep in my lower back like an unwelcome guest that refused to leave. The restaurant's kitchen smelled of burnt garlic and desperation, a scent I'd grown intimately familiar with over the past 6 months. "Table 12 needs their order now!" Marco's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and impatient. I grabbed the heavy tray, my wrists protesting under the weight of perfectly plated dishes that cost more than my monthly rent. The Velvet Rose wasn't just any restaurant. It was where the city's elite came to see and be seen, where deals were made over wine that could pay off my student loans, where people like me were meant to be invisible. The dining room glowed with amber light from crystal chandeliers, casting long shadows that danced across white tablecloths. I moved through the space like a ghost, careful not to make eye contact, careful not to exist too loudly. That was the job. Serve the food, refill the wine, disappear. Table 12 sat in the corner booth, the most private section of the restaurant. I'd been warned about corner booths. They belonged to people who valued privacy for reasons that had nothing to do with romance. I approached with practiced deference, my eyes fixed on the tray in my hands. But even without looking directly, I felt him. The air shifted, grew denser, charged with something I couldn't name. It was the same feeling you get before a thunderstorm, when the atmosphere presses down on your chest and makes it hard to breathe. "Your appetizers, gentlemen," I murmured, beginning to set down the plates. That's when I made my first mistake. I looked up. He sat at the head of the table, surrounded by 4 men in expensive suits who looked like they could break bones without breaking a sweat. But he was different. Younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in museums. All sharp angles and dangerous beauty. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, and probably cost more than my car. Actually, more than 3 of my cars if I could afford 3 cars. But it was his eyes that caught me, dark, almost black, and completely still, like deep water that looked calm on the surface but hid dangerous currents underneath. I realized I'd been staring for 3 seconds too long. "I'm sorry," I stammered, quickly setting down the remaining plates. My hands trembled slightly, and I hated myself for it. One of the men at the table leaned forward, his voice low and threatening. "You got a problem? You staring at Luca." The word was barely above a whisper, but it sliced through the tension like a blade. The dangerous man, Luca, immediately fell silent, settling back in his seat. The dark-eyed man hadn't moved, hadn't raised his voice, but everyone at the table had frozen, including me. "What's your name?" His voice was smooth, cultured, with the barest trace of an accent I couldn't place. Italian, maybe, or somewhere in the Mediterranean. "Emma," I said, my throat tight. "Emma Walsh." He tilted his head slightly, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You're new here, Emma Walsh." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. 6 months. "And before that?" I was studying art history, but I trailed off, unsure why I was telling him anything. Something about his gaze made words spill out before I could stop them. "But money ran out," he finished for me, his lips curving into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Of course it did. It always does." One of the other men shifted uncomfortably. Through the corner of my eye, I noticed 2 more men in dark suits standing near the restaurant's entrance, their eyes constantly scanning the room, not eating, not sitting, just watching. "I should let you enjoy your meal," I said, taking a step back. "Emma." My name in his mouth sounded different, weightier, like it meant something I didn't understand yet. "Do you know who I am?" I should have lied. Every instinct screamed at me to lie, to shake my head and play dumb, but something about those dark eyes made deception feel impossible. "No," I admitted. Should I? For the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not quite surprise, but close to it. The men around him exchanged glances that I couldn't interpret. He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking softly. "Most people do." "I'm not most people," I said, then immediately wanted to take it back. Who was I to talk to him like that? But the words were out, hanging in the charged air between us. The almost smile returned, wider this time. No, I don't believe you are. Marco appeared at my elbow, his face flushed with anxiety. Is everything all right here? Emma, you're needed in the kitchen. Everything is perfect, the dark-eyed man said, though he never looked away from me. In fact, I'd like Emma to handle our table exclusively this evening. Of course, Mr. Dante, whatever you need. Marco practically bowed, then grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks, dragging me back toward the kitchen. Do you have any idea who that is? He hissed once we were out of earshot. That's Alessandro Dante. The Alessandro Dante. The name meant nothing to me, and my confusion must have shown. Jesus, Emma. Do you live under a rock? Marco rubbed his face. The Dante family basically owns half this city, and not the legal half. You do not stare at Alessandro Dante. You do not talk back to Alessandro Dante. You serve him, you say yes, sir, and you disappear. Understand? My stomach dropped. Mafia. He was talking about the Mafia. I didn't know. I whispered. Well, now you do. And for some reason, he wants you serving his table. So put on your best smile, keep your mouth shut, and pray you make it through the night without offending him. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of anxiety and hyper-awareness. Every time I approached table 12, my heart hammered against my ribs. Alessandro, Mr. Dante, I reminded myself, watched me with those dark, unreadable eyes. Not obviously, not crudely, but I felt his gaze like a physical touch every time I came near. His men talked in low voices about things I tried not to hear: shipments, territories, names that came with implied threats. I refilled wine glasses, cleared plates, and tried to be invisible. But I wasn't invisible to him. You're nervous, he observed when I brought their dessert course. The restaurant had emptied considerably, but his party showed no signs of leaving. I'm fine, I lied. Your hands are shaking. I glanced down. He was right. I set down the dessert plates carefully, willing my hands to steady. Someone told you who I am, he continued, his voice conversational but his eyes sharp. Now you're afraid. It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. Are you scared of me, Emma? The question hung in the air between us. His men had stopped talking. All attention suddenly focused on our exchange. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. I should have said yes, should have played it safe, shown appropriate fear, given him the answer he probably expected. Instead, I met his gaze directly. Should I be? The silence that followed felt like falling, like stepping off a cliff and waiting to see if there was water or rocks below. Then Alessandro Dante laughed, not loud, not mocking, but genuine, like I'd surprised him for the second time that night. Luca, he said, still looking at me. What do you think? Should she be scared of me? Luca, the dangerous one who'd almost threatened me earlier, shifted in his seat. Boss, It was a rhetorical question. Alessandro's voice remained pleasant, but something in it made Luca's mouth snap shut. Alessandro stood, and I realized he was taller than I'd thought. At least 6'2", with a presence that seemed to fill the entire space. He reached into his jacket, I tried not to flinch, and pulled out a business card. You're interesting, Emma Walsh, he said, pressing the card into my palm. His fingers were warm, and the brief contact sent electricity up my arm. I think we'll see each other again. I work here most nights, I said stupidly. I know. His smile was dangerous and beautiful. But I think our next meeting will be somewhere more private. Before I could respond, he was moving toward the exit, his men falling into formation around him like a well-rehearsed dance. 2 men emerged from the shadows near the door, the ones I'd noticed earlier, and preceded him outside. Through the window, I watched him slide into the back of a black SUV with tinted windows. Another identical SUV pulled out in front, and a third fell in behind. Marco appeared at my shoulder. What did he give you? I looked down at the card. Heavy stock, black with silver lettering. Just a phone number. No name, no title. Nothing important, I said, slipping it into my apron pocket. but my fingers kept finding it throughout the rest of my shift, tracing the embossed numbers like a talisman. Or a warning. I should have thrown it away. I should have forgotten about dark eyes and dangerous smiles. I should have known that Alessandro Dante didn't do anything without a reason, and his interest in me wasn't the kind of attention anyone wanted. But when I got home that night, to my tiny studio apartment with its peeling wallpaper and broken heating, when I finally collapsed onto my second-hand couch and pulled out that black card, I didn't throw it away. I saved it. And somewhere across the city, in a penthouse I'd never seen, I had the strange, impossible feeling that Alessandro Dante knew I would. The rain continued to fall, washing the city clean of its daily sins. But some stains, I was beginning to learn, ran too deep to ever wash away. 3 days passed before I heard from him again. 3 days of jumping every time the restaurant door opened, of checking my phone obsessively even though I'd never given him my number, of lying awake at night replaying that conversation in my head. Should I be scared of me? What kind of person asks that? What kind of person answers the way I did? I'd researched him, of course. Late at night, curled up in bed with my laptop casting blue light across my face, I'd typed his name into search engines and fallen down a rabbit hole I couldn't climb out of. Alessandro Dante, 32 years old, head of the Dante family operations in the city. His father had died 5 years ago. Car accident, the article said, though the way they said it made it clear nobody believed that. Since taking over, Alessandro had consolidated power, eliminated rivals, and turned the family business into something sleeker, more sophisticated, and infinitely more dangerous. There were photos. Him at charity galas in $1,000 tuxedos, him leaving courthouses where charges somehow never stuck, him at his father's funeral, face carved from stone, surrounded by men who looked ready to kill on his command. I should have been terrified. Instead, I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at me, like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. On the 4th day, everything changed. I was walking home from my shift, exhausted and aching, when I noticed the car, black SUV with tinted windows, idling at the corner near my apartment building, the same kind of vehicle that had waited for Alessandro outside the restaurant. My heart kicked into overdrive. I tried to tell myself it was paranoia, that black SUVs were common in the city, that I was being ridiculous. Then the back door opened. Miss Walsh. The man who stepped out was built like a freight train, all shoulders and controlled violence. I recognized him from Alessandro's table. One of the quiet ones who'd watched everything and said nothing. Mr. Dante requests your presence. I'm sorry, what? It's not a complicated request. His voice was polite but left no room for argument. Please get in the car. And if I don't want to? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Dante was very specific. He said you might be difficult. He said to tell you that you have a choice. You always have a choice. The way he emphasized the word made it clear that while I technically had a choice, only one option was wise. I thought about running, about screaming, about all the things a smart woman should do when a mobster's enforcer tells her to get in an unmarked vehicle. But I also thought about Alessandro's eyes, about the way he'd laughed when I challenged him, about the strange pull I'd felt, like gravity shifting beneath my feet. Where are we going? I asked. Mr. Dante will explain. I got in the car. The interior smelled of leather and expensive cologne. Another man sat in the driver's seat, and I recognized the back of his head. Luca, the dangerous one. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his expression unreadable. We drove in silence through streets that grew progressively more affluent. The buildings got taller, the cars got shinier, and my anxiety ratcheted higher with every block. I tried to memorize the route, some survival instinct kicking in, but after the 7th or 8th turn, I lost track. Finally, we pulled up to a high-rise that looked like it had been carved from glass and steel and money. The kind of building that had doormen in uniforms and security cameras that actually worked. This way, the freight train said, opening my door. The lobby was all marble and modern art, the kind of sterile elegance that made me acutely aware of my cheap clothes and scuffed shoes. We bypassed the main elevators, heading instead to a private one in the back that required a key card. We rode up in silence. The numbers climbed, 20, 30, 40, until finally stopping at the top floor. The penthouse level. The doors opened directly into an apartment that defied my understanding of the word. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city. Twinkling lights spread out like stars fall into earth. The furniture was modern and minimal, all clean lines and expensive materials. Original artwork hung on the walls. I recognized a piece that should have been in a museum. And standing by the windows, backlit by the city he apparently owned, was Alessandro Dante. He'd removed his jacket and tie, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. Somehow, this version of him was more dangerous than the suited one from the restaurant. More human. More real. Emma. He turned, and even across the distance of the massive room, I felt the impact of his gaze. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? The words came out sharper than I intended. His lips quirked. You always have a choice. You chose to get in the car. You chose not to run. You're still choosing. Even now. Why am I here? Because I want you here. He moved closer, each step deliberate. Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since you walked away from my table with your hands shaking but your eyes steady. Do you know how rare that is? Fear and courage in the same heartbeat? You don't know anything about me. I know more than you think. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Something dark and woodsy with hints of bergamot. Emma Catherine Walsh, 24 years old. Studied art history at the university until your father got sick. Lung cancer. He died 8 months ago, leaving you with $60,000 in medical debt and a degree you can't afford to finish. You work 60-hour weeks at the Velvet Rose, sending every spare penny to debt collectors who don't care that you're drowning. My breath caught in my throat. How? I make it my business to know things. His voice was matter of fact, not apologetic. Especially about people who interest me. That's creepy. Yes, he agreed simply. It is, but I'm not a good man, Emma. I thought I made that clear. Then why am I here? What do you want from me? He studied me for a long moment, something complex moving behind his dark eyes. I want to offer you a deal. What kind of deal? Your debt. All of it. $60,000. Gone. Plus a monthly allowance that would let you quit the restaurant, finish your degree if you want, live somewhere without mold growing on the bathroom ceiling. My heart hammered. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it was. In exchange for what? Your company. I blinked. My company? I want you available when I need you. Dinners, events, occasionally traveling with me. You'll be compensated generously for your time. He paused, his gaze intense. Nothing you don't agree to. I'm not asking you to sleep with me if that's what you're thinking, though I won't pretend I'm not attracted to you. This is insane. You're basically asking me to be... what? Your escort? I'm asking you to be yourself, just near me. He moved closer still, and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. I'm a man who gets what he wants, Emma. Always. But I want you to choose this. I want you to walk into it with your eyes open. And if I say no? His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Then Luca drives you home, and we never speak of this again. You go back to your life, your debt, your 60-hour weeks. I go back to mine. We become strangers who shared one interesting evening. He made it sound so simple, so easy. But nothing about Alessandro Dante was simple or easy. I need time to think. Of course. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. I've transferred $5,000 to your bank account. Consider it a gesture of good faith. Take a week. Think about what you want, what you need. Then call me. I can't accept. You can, and you will, because you're practical, Emma. It's one of the things I admire about you. You know that pride is a luxury you can't afford right now. He was right, and I hated him for it. 1 week, I said quietly. 1 week. He smiled, and it transformed his face into something almost boyish, almost innocent. Luca will drive you home. And Emma, make sure you eat something. You're too thin. The ride home passed in a daze. When I finally stumbled into my apartment, I checked my bank account with shaking hands. $5,000. Just sitting there. Like it was nothing. Like it hadn't taken me 6 months of brutal work to save 1/10 of that amount. I should have been grateful. Should have been relieved. Instead, I felt like I just sold something I couldn't get back. That night, I dreamed of dark eyes and dangerous promises, of gilded cages that looked like freedom, of falling and falling with no idea where I'd land. The next 3 days were torture. I went through the motions at work, but my mind was elsewhere, constantly circling back to Alessandro's offer. $60,000. My debt gone. A chance to breathe, to live, to be something other than exhausted and afraid. But at what cost? I researched more, found articles about women who'd been linked to the Dante family over the years. Some had ended up wealthy and protected. Others had simply disappeared from public view. The internet was full of whispers and speculation, but nothing concrete, nothing that told me what I actually needed to know. On the 5th day, something happened that made my decision for me. I was leaving the restaurant late, past midnight, the streets mostly empty. I'd stayed to help clean up after a private party, desperate for the overtime pay. The rain had returned, turning the sidewalks slick and treacherous. I didn't notice the men following me until it was too late. There were 3 of them, spread out, but clearly together. One crossed the street to block my path forward. Another appeared from an alley behind me. The third stayed to my left, cutting off that escape route. Emma Walsh? The one in front was tall and wiry, with a smile that made my skin crawl. I don't know you. My voice came out steadier than I felt. But we know you. Heard you've been keeping interesting company lately. The Dante boy seems pretty taken with you. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't be stupid. He stepped closer, and I smelled alcohol and something rotten. You're going to give him a message for us. Tell Alessandro that the Moretti family sends their regards. Tell him we know all his weaknesses now, including his pretty little waitress. Terror shot through me, cold and sharp. We're not, save it. His hand shot out, grabbing my arm hard enough to make me gasp. You think he does background checks and drops $5,000 on girls he's not interested in? You're either incredibly stupid or incredibly naive. How did he know about the money? The man behind me moved closer. I could feel the walls closing in, the night pressing down. This was it. This was how people disappeared in this city. Then headlights flooded the street. 2 black SUVs came out of nowhere, moving fast. They screeched to a halt, surrounding us. Doors flew open, and suddenly there were men everywhere. Alessandro's men, I realized, recognizing Luca and the freight train, whose name I still didn't know. The Moretti men released me immediately, backing away with their hands raised. Gentlemen. Luca's voice was pleasant, conversational. I think you made a wrong turn. We were just talking. You were threatening Mr. Dante's property. Luca smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. That's not talking. That's a declaration of war. We didn't touch her. You put your hands on her. This voice came from behind me, deep and cold and absolutely furious. I turned. Alessandro stood there, and he looked nothing like the controlled, sophisticated man from the penthouse. His eyes were black with rage, his jaw tight, every line of his body radiating lethal intent. He moved past me, each step precise, until he was inches from the wiry man who'd grabbed my arm. You touched her, Alessandro repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. You put your hands on what's mine. She's not. Alessandro moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was still. The next, the wiry man was on his knees, crying out in pain as Alessandro twisted his arm behind his back. Say it, Alessandro demanded. Say she's mine. She's yours. The man's voice cracked with pain and fear. Jesus Christ, she's yours. Alessandro released him, stepping back. His men immediately grabbed all 3 Moretti soldiers, dragging them toward one of the SUVs. Then Alessandro turned to me, and just like that the rage was gone, replaced by something else. Concern. Possessiveness. Something that looked almost like fear. Are you hurt? His hands were on my shoulders, my arms, checking for injuries with a gentleness that contradicted everything I'd just witnessed. I'm fine. I managed. I'm okay. You're not okay. You're shaking. He shrugged out of his jacket, draping it over my shoulders. It smelled like him, and the weight of it felt like safety. Luca, take the Moretti trash somewhere they'll remember this lesson. Make it memorable. With pleasure, boss. The SUVs drove away, leaving just one vehicle and two of Alessandro's men standing at a discreet distance. How did you know? I asked, my voice small. How did you know I was in trouble? His jaw tightened. You've had protection since the night we met. Did you really think I'd let you walk around unguarded after making your connection to me so public? You've been having me followed. I've been keeping you safe. He cupped my face in his hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. And tonight proved I was right to do it. The Morettis are our rivals. They'd hurt you just to get to me. Do you understand now? Do you see what being in my world means? I should have been angry about the surveillance. Should have been terrified by what I'd just witnessed. Should have run as far and fast as I could, but all I could think about was the way he'd said it. What's mine? I'll take your deal, I whispered. His eyes widened slightly. Emma? I'll take it. All of it. Whatever you want. Just... I took a shaky breath. Just keep me safe. Please. Something fierce and possessive flashed across his face. Then he pulled me against his chest, wrapping his arms around me like he could shield me from the entire world. Always. He murmured into my hair. You're mine now, Emma, and I protect what's mine, always. Standing there in the rain, wrapped in the arms of a monster who'd just proved he'd go to war for me, I realized I'd just made a deal with the devil. And the terrifying part was how right it felt. Alessandro's penthouse became my gilded cage within 48 hours. Not literally. He was careful to remind me I could leave whenever I wanted, but the apartment he'd arranged for me was in the same building, just 3 floors down, for convenience, he'd said, though we both knew it was about control, about keeping me close, about making sure nothing like that night on the street could ever happen again. The new apartment was obscene in its luxury. Hardwood floors that gleamed like honey, floor-to-ceiling windows with views that made my breath catch, furniture that looked like it belonged in magazines. The bathroom alone was bigger than my entire previous studio, all marble and chrome with a shower that had more settings than my car. My old landlord had been confused when Alessandro's men showed up to collect my things. I'd left him a check for the remaining months on my lease, money I now had, thanks to the account Alessandro had set up for me. The debt collectors had been even more confused when every single one of my accounts was paid in full within 24 hours. $60,000. Gone. Just like that. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt owned. You're thinking too loud. Alessandro's voice pulled me from my thoughts. We were in his penthouse, our 3rd dinner together in as many days. He'd insisted on these evening meetings, claiming he wanted to get to know me properly. So far, that had meant expensive wine, food I couldn't pronounce, and conversations that felt like chess matches where I didn't know the rules. I'm just adjusting, I said, pushing my barely touched risotto around the plate. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with that intense gaze that made me feel transparent. He'd changed after work, another perfectly tailored shirt, this one charcoal gray, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that were surprisingly muscular. There was a small scar on his left wrist that I'd noticed during our first dinner. I'd wanted to ask about it, but hadn't found the courage. You're not eating. I'm not very hungry. You're never hungry. I'm beginning to think you don't actually need food to survive. His tone was light, but there was an edge of genuine concern underneath. When was the last time you had a full meal? I eat, I protested weakly. Coffee and anxiety don't count as meals, Emma. He stood, moving to the kitchen with fluid grace. I watched as he pulled out ingredients, his movements efficient and practiced. My mother insisted all her sons learn to cook. She said a man who couldn't feed himself was useless. You have brothers, too. Marco runs our operations in Chicago. Luca, you've met him, handles enforcement here. He began chopping vegetables with professional precision. My mother died when I was 17. Cancer, like your father. The unexpected vulnerability in his voice made my chest tighten. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But the way his knife moved faster, harder, told a different story. She would have liked you, I think. She had no patience for weak people. But she respected those who stood their ground even when they were afraid. Is that what I am? Afraid? He looked up, meeting my eyes, terrified. But you're here anyway. That takes courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. He smiled, and it softened the harsh lines of his face. Come here. Help me with this. I stood on uncertain legs, moving to the kitchen. He handed me a tomato and a knife, positioning me at the counter beside him. His sleeve brushed against my arm, and I tried to ignore the spark of electricity that contact created. Tell me about your father, he said as we worked. What was he like? The question caught me off guard. Why do you want to know? Because he shaped you, and I want to understand you. I focused on the tomato, watching my hands slice through the red flesh. He was kind. Too kind, maybe. He worked as a school teacher, history. Never made much money, but he loved what he did. When he got sick, he tried to hide it from me. Kept going to work even when he could barely breathe. By the time he finally went to the doctor, it was stage 4. And you dropped out to take care of him. Of course I did. He was my father. I blinked back tears that had no business being there. He died 3 days after my 24th birthday. His last words were an apology for the debt he was leaving me. Alessandro's hand covered mine, stilling the knife. That's why you took my deal. Not just for the money. For him. Because he taught you that love means sacrifice. Don't psychoanalyze me. I'm not. I'm understanding you. He turned me to face him, his hands warm on my shoulders. Your father sounds like he was a good man. The kind of man who would probably hate me. Probably. I agreed. But he'd understand why you're here. He'd forgive you for doing what you had to do to survive. Would he? My voice cracked slightly. I'm not so sure. Alessandro pulled me closer, and I let him. Too tired and overwhelmed to resist. His chest was solid against my cheek, his heartbeat steady and strong. You're stronger than you think, Emma. Stronger than most people I know. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm drowning. Then let me be your oxygen. His arms tightened around me, possessive and protective. That's why you're here, remember? I protect what's mine. There was that word again. Mine. It should have made me angry. Should have made me pull away. Instead, I found myself sinking deeper into his embrace, letting him hold me together when I felt like falling apart. We stood like that for a long moment, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, the smell of cooking food filling the air. It felt almost normal, almost like this was a real relationship and not a transaction. Almost. The next week passed in a strange rhythm. Alessandro had business during the days. Business he never discussed in detail, though I'd learned to recognize the signs. The tense phone calls, the meetings with men who looked like they ate nails for breakfast, the nights when he came home with blood on his knuckles and wouldn't meet my eyes. But the evenings were ours. He took me to a gallery opening on Wednesday, his hand possessive on the small of my back as we moved through crowds of wealthy art enthusiasts. I'd worn a dress he'd had delivered to my apartment, black silk that cost more than 3 months of my old rent. People stared at us, whispered behind their champagne flutes. I heard my name paired with his in speculation that made my cheeks burn. Ignore them, Alessandro murmured in my ear, his breath warm against my skin. They're jealous. The women want to be you. The men want to be me. Egotistical much? Realistic. His hand slid lower, just above the curve of my hip. A claiming gesture that everyone in the room noticed. You're beautiful, Emma. Surely you realize that. I'm average. You're extraordinary. His voice was low, intense. You look at art the way most people look at lovers, like you want to consume it, become part of it. He wasn't wrong. Standing in front of a Rothko that probably cost millions, I felt that familiar hunger, the desire to understand, to connect, to lose myself in color and form and meaning. This is what you should be doing, Alessandro said, standing behind me now, his presence a solid warmth at my back, not serving food to people who don't see you. You should be here, surrounded by beauty, creating it, or studying it, or preserving it. That's not realistic. Why not? Money isn't an obstacle anymore. Finish your degree. I'll make sure you get into the best graduate programs. You could work at any gallery or museum in the city. I turned to look at him, searching his face for the catch. Why would you do that? Because I want you happy. He said it like it was simple, like his wants rewrote the laws of reality. And because talented people should be able to pursue their talents, it's wasteful otherwise. Alessandro, don't argue with me on this. It's already done. I spoke with the university. You're reinstated for the spring semester. Full scholarship. My foundation's name on it. So there's no connection to me personally, if that makes you more comfortable. Shock stole my breath. You can't just... I can. I did. Classes start in 2 weeks. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb stroking my jawline. Say thank you, Emma. This is insane. Say it. Thank you, I whispered, hating how easily he dismantled my resistance. How he seemed to know exactly what I needed before I did. He smiled, satisfied, and pressed a kiss to my forehead, a chaste gesture that somehow felt more intimate than anything else we'd shared. Around us, the whispers grew louder. Friday night, everything shifted again. We were having dinner, actually in a restaurant this time, though not the Velvet Rose. Alessandro had wanted somewhere less public, which apparently meant a private room in an establishment that probably didn't have its name on any official records. Luca was there, along with 2 other men I'd learned were part of Alessandro's inner circle. Marco, his younger brother, had flown in from Chicago and sat across from me, studying me with calculating eyes that reminded me of Alessandro's. So you're the one who's got my brother acting like a lovesick teenager, Marco said, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. Marco. Alessandro's tone held a warning. What? I'm just making conversation. Marco grinned, but there was steel underneath. It's not every day Alessandro brings a woman into the family business. I'm not in the family business, I said quickly. You're in his penthouse. You're at this dinner. You're wearing a dress that cost more than most people's cars, and you've got protection details that even our high-value assets don't get. Marco leaned forward. You're in the business, sweetheart, whether you want to admit it or not. Alessandro's hand slammed down on the table, making the glasses jump. Enough. The temperature in the room plummeted. Marco raised his hands in surrender, but his smirk remained. I apologize, Alessandro said to me, his voice tight. My brother forgets his manners sometimes. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, Marco countered. The Moretti's already made a move on her. The other families are watching. You need to make your intentions clear, or she becomes a target. My intentions are perfectly clear. Are they? Marco's eyes flicked between us. Because from where I'm sitting, you've got a girl you're obsessed with but won't claim publicly. That looks like weakness, brother, and weakness gets people killed. The air felt too thick to breathe. I could see Alessandro's jaw working, muscles twitching under his skin. Emma. He turned to me, and something in his expression made my heart skip. I need to ask you something, and I need you to think very carefully before you answer. Okay. The Moretti's won't be the last to see you as a vulnerability. As long as you're connected to me, you're in danger. I can protect you. I will protect you. But there are levels of protection. Different commitments. He paused, and I swear I saw his hand tremble slightly before he steadied it. I'm asking if you're willing to go deeper. To let me claim you, publicly and permanently. To become untouchable. What does that mean exactly? Marco laughed. He's asking you to be his sweetheart. His woman. His everything. In our world, that's a vow. Break it. And nothing. Alessandro cut him off sharply. Because Emma isn't going to break anything. And neither am I. His eyes never left mine. I'm saying I want more than our arrangement. I want you, Emma. All of you. Not as a transaction, but as mine. Really mine. The room fell silent. Every man at the table watched us, waiting. My mind raced. This was happening too fast. We'd known each other less than 2 weeks. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. It was obsession, possession, the dangerous infatuation of a man who was used to owning things. But when I looked into Alessandro's eyes, I saw something that terrified me more than anything else. I saw certainty. I saw devotion. I saw a man who'd decided I was his, and who'd move heaven and earth to keep me. What if I say no? I whispered. Pain flashed across his face, quickly hidden. Then I honor our original agreement. You keep the apartment, the money, everything I promised. You finish your degree. You walk away, and I make sure no one in my world ever touches you. You'd let me go? I'd have no choice. His voice was raw. I told you, Emma. You always have a choice. I want you to choose me, but I won't force you. Marco muttered something in Italian that I didn't understand. Luca shifted uncomfortably. The other men looked anywhere but at us. I thought about my father, about the sacrifices he'd made, the love he'd shown, about how he'd taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you could do was take a leap of faith. I thought about Alessandro's hands on me, gentle despite their capacity for violence, about the way he looked at me like I was precious, about how safe I felt when he held me, even though he was probably the most dangerous person I'd ever met. I thought about the girl I'd been 3 weeks ago, drowning in debt, invisible to the world, slowly disappearing under the weight of her own exhaustion, and I thought about who I might become if I took his hand and jumped. Okay, I said quietly. Alessandro's eyes widened. Okay? Okay, I'm yours, really yours. I took a shaky breath. But Alessandro, if I'm doing this, if I'm jumping into your world, then you have to promise me something, anything. Don't make me regret it. Don't make me regret trusting you. He stood, moving around the table so fast I barely had time to process. Then he was pulling me up, his hands framing my face, his eyes burning with an intensity that stole my breath. Never, he swore. I swear on my mother's grave, Emma. I will never make you regret choosing me. Then he kissed me. Not gentle, not tentative. A claiming kiss, possessive and deep, his hands sliding into my hair as he pulled me against him. I felt his heart hammering against my chest, matching the frantic rhythm of my own. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Mine, he whispered against my lips. Yours, I agreed, and sealed my fate. The next morning, I woke up in Alessandro's bed for the first time. Nothing had happened. Not in the way people might assume. After the kiss that had sealed our new arrangement, he'd brought me back to his penthouse, poured us both whiskey that burned going down, and talked until 3 a.m, about his childhood in Sicily, about taking over the family business at 27 when his father died, about the weight of responsibility and blood that came with his name. Then, when exhaustion finally claimed me, he'd carried me to his bedroom, laid me down with a gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about him, and climbed in beside me, just held me, his arms wrapped around me like chains and safety in equal measure. Now, morning light filtered through the curtains, painting everything gold. Alessandro was already awake, propped on one elbow, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You're staring, I mumbled, my voice rough with sleep. You're beautiful in the morning, all soft and unguarded. His finger traced the line of my jaw. I like seeing you like this, without all those walls you put up. I don't have walls. You have fortresses, Emma, castles with moats and archers. You've been protecting yourself for so long you don't even realize you're doing it anymore. His thumb brushed across my lower lip. But you don't need them with me. I'm your protection now. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something dark crossed his face. What is it? Nothing for you to worry about, but his tone said otherwise. He kissed my forehead and rolled out of bed, already reaching for clothes. I need to handle some business. Luca will stay with you. Don't leave the building. Alessandro. Not a request, Emma. Please. The last word was softer, almost pleading. Just for today. Stay here where I know you're safe. He was gone within 10 minutes, leaving me in his massive bed that still smelled like him, wondering what kind of business required such urgency on a Saturday morning. Luca appeared an hour later. When I'd finally dragged myself to the kitchen for coffee, he looked uncomfortable in the domestic setting, his large frame awkward among Alessandro's sleek furniture. Boss says I'm on babysitting duty, he said, not unkindly. I don't need a babysitter. Tell him that. I'm just following orders. He accepted the coffee I offered, studying me over the rim of his cup. You know, when he first mentioned you, I thought you were just another pretty face, another rich man's whim. And now? Now I think you're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Haven't decided which yet. He set down his cup. The Moretti situation, it's worse than you think. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? The guys who grabbed you that night, they're dead. Alessandro made an example of them. Sent their bodies back to the Moretti family with a message carved into their backs. She's mine. Touch her and die. Luca's expression was grave. That kind of statement doesn't go unanswered. Ice flooded my veins. He killed them? For grabbing my arm? He killed them for threatening what's his. In our world, that's not just justified. It's expected. But it also means war. Luca leaned forward. The Morettis have been looking for an excuse to move against us for years. You just became that excuse. Jesus Christ. I sank into a chair, my hands shaking. People are going to die because of me. People are going to die because the Morettis are greedy and stupid. You're just the catalyst. His voice gentled slightly. Look, I'm telling you this because you need to understand what you've gotten into. Alessandro, he's not like other men. When he decides something is his, he'll burn the world to keep it. And you, Emma Walsh, you're his now. That means armies will fall before he lets anyone hurt you. That's insane. That's love. At least that's what love looks like in our world. Luca stood, moving to the window. He's never been like this with anyone. His last girlfriend, if you can even call her that, he dropped without a second thought when she became inconvenient. But you, he's ready to start a war over you. I didn't ask for that. Doesn't matter. You chose him. Now you live with the consequences. The words hung heavy in the air. I thought about Alessandro's hands covered in blood, about bodies with messages carved into them, about the violence I'd invited into my life by saying yes. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. Alessandro returned as evening fell. Exhaustion etched into every line of his face. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, and there was a hardness in his eyes that hadn't been there this morning. Is it handled? Luca asked immediately. For now. Alessandro's gaze found mine across the room. Leave us. Luca departed without argument. The door clicked shut, leaving us in heavy silence. Luca told me, I said quietly, about the Morettis, about what you did. Alessandro's jaw tightened. I was going to tell you myself. Were you? Or were you going to keep me in the dark, protected and ignorant? Does it matter? He moved closer, and I could smell smoke and something metallic. Blood, maybe. They threatened you, Emma. They put their hands on you. What did you think would happen? I thought you'd warn them. Scare them. Not... I couldn't finish the sentence. Not kill them? He laughed, bitter and sharp. This is who I am. What I am. I told you from the beginning I'm not a good man. I don't do halfway. I don't show mercy to people who threaten what's mine. And now there's going to be a war. There was always going to be a war. The Morettis have been pushing boundaries for months. This just moved up the timeline. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Pain flashed across his face. Don't pull away from me, Emma. Not now. I don't know if I can do this. Be the reason people die. You're not the reason. Their greed is the reason. Their disrespect is the reason. You're just... He stopped, running a hand through his hair. You're everything. The thing I didn't know I needed until I saw you standing in my restaurant with fear in your eyes and steel in your voice. And now that I have you, I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe. If that makes me a monster, then I'm a monster. Alessandro. No. Let me finish. He closed the distance between us, his hands gripping my shoulders. I know what I'm asking of you. I know it's not fair, not reasonable, not anything a sane person would accept. But I'm asking anyway. Stay with me. Let me protect you. Let me... His voice cracked slightly. Let me love you, even if I'm not worthy of loving you back. The raw vulnerability in his voice undid something in me. This powerful, dangerous man, stripped bare and honest in a way that terrified him. I'm scared, I whispered. I know, so am I. He pulled me against his chest, his heart hammering beneath my ear. Every day I'm scared that you'll realize what a mistake this is. That you'll leave. That someone will take you from me. It's a fear I've never felt before, and it's driving me insane. This is crazy. We barely know each other. I know enough. I know you're kind despite everything life has thrown at you. I know you're brave even when you're terrified. I know you look at me like I'm both your salvation and your damnation, and you can't decide which one you want more. His arms tightened around me, and I know that if anything happened to you, I'd raze this city to the ground looking for revenge. That's not love. That's obsession. With you, they're the same thing. He tilted my face up, forcing me to meet his eyes. I'm obsessed with keeping you safe, with making you happy, with earning the right to have you look at me the way you're looking at me right now. How am I looking at you? Like maybe, despite everything, you might feel it too. This impossible, insane thing between us. He was right. God help me, he was right. I do, I admitted, the words barely audible. Feel it, whatever this is. His kiss was different this time, desperate, claiming, like he was trying to pour every complicated emotion into the connection of our mouths. I kissed him back with equal fervor, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer even though there was no space left between us. When we broke apart, both breathless, his forehead rested against mine. I need to tell you something, he said. About tomorrow. My stomach dropped. What about tomorrow? There's a meeting. The 5 families. The Morettis are demanding satisfaction for what I did. They want compensation or... He stopped. Or what? Or you. They want you handed over to them. As punishment for my overreach. Horror crashed through me. What? It's not gonna happen. I die before I let them touch you. But I need you to understand. This is going to get worse before it gets better. The other families might side with them. Might decide I've overstepped, let my feelings make me weak. His voice was steady, but I could feel the tension in his body. Tomorrow, I'm going into that room, and I'm telling every man there that you're off limits, that anyone who touches you, threatens you, even looks at you wrong, will answer to me personally. That's a declaration of war. No? That's a declaration of fact. He pulled back enough to look at me properly. I need you to trust me, Emma. Can you do that? I thought about everything that had led to this moment. The desperate poverty that had made me visible to him. The deal that had seemed like salvation. The slow slide from transaction to something deeper, more dangerous, more real. I thought about the man holding me, capable of terrible violence but gentle with me. Obsessed and protective and completely, terrifyingly certain about what he wanted. And I realized that somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being afraid of Alessandro Dante. Now I was only afraid of losing him. I trust you, I said. The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise, warm and devastating and full of promise. Then we'll face whatever comes together. He kissed me again, softer this time. You and me against the world, Emma. That's how this works now. You and me, I echoed. Outside the windows, the city glittered with 1,000 lights. Beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. Somewhere out there, men were planning violence. Families were choosing sides. A war was brewing that I'd inadvertently sparked. But here, in Alessandro's arms, I felt safe. Maybe that made me naive. Maybe it made me foolish. Or maybe it just made me his. The night passed in a strange limbo. Alessandro made calls, his voice cold and commanding as he spoke in rapid Italian to people whose names I didn't know. I caught fragments, threats and promises and arrangements that sounded like chess moves in a game I couldn't see. Finally, near midnight, he came to bed, pulled me against him with a desperation that spoke of fear he wouldn't voice. Whatever happens tomorrow, he murmured into my hair, remember that I chose you. Not my family, not my business, not my reputation. You, always you. Nothing's going to happen, I said, trying to convince myself as much as him. Promise me something. What? If things go wrong, if somehow they get to you, if I can't protect you, his voice broke slightly. Promise me you'll fight, that you won't give up, that you'll survive, even if I don't. Alessandro, don't. Promise me, Emma. I turned in his arms, cupping his face in my hands. I promise. But you have to promise me something too. Anything. Come back to me. Whatever happens in that meeting, whatever you have to do, come back. His kiss was answer enough. We held each other in the darkness, two people who'd found something impossible and precious in the worst circumstances, knowing that tomorrow might take it all away. But for tonight, we had this, and we held on like our lives depended on it. Because they did. The morning of the meeting arrived with deceptive calm. Alessandro was already awake when I opened my eyes, standing by the windows in a black suit that made him look like death personified. His hair was perfectly styled, his expression carved from stone. This wasn't the man who'd held me through the night, whispering promises against my skin. This was the Dante heir, the Mafia boss, the man who commanded fear and respect in equal measure. "You're going to the meeting like that?" I asked, sitting up. "Like what?" "Like you're going to war." He turned, and his expression softened fractionally when he saw me. "I am going to war, amore, but I'm going to win it." The endearment, Italian, tender, sent warmth through my chest despite the cold fear coiling in my stomach. "Let me come with you." "Absolutely not." His voice was firm. "You stay here. Luca and Marco will be with you, along with 6 other men. This penthouse is a fortress. No one gets in without going through them first. I don't want to hide while you fight for me." He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling me up and against his chest. "You're not hiding. You're staying safe. That's the only thing that matters to me today." His hand slid into my hair, tilting my face up. "I need to know you're protected, that no matter what happens in that room, you're here, waiting for me. What if you don't come back? Then Marco will get you out of the city, out of the country if necessary. He has instructions, money, everything you'd need to disappear." He saw my expression and continued quickly. "But that's not going to happen. I'm coming back, Emma. I swear it." I wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. "Kiss me," I whispered. "For luck." His mouth captured mine with bruising intensity, a kiss that tasted like possession and promise and goodbye all at once. When he pulled away, we were both breathing hard. "Wait for me," he said. Then he was gone. The hours that followed were torture. Luca and Marco positioned themselves strategically around the penthouse, checking weapons I tried not to look at too closely. The other guards were ghosts, present but invisible, stationed at entry points I hadn't even known existed. Marco tried to distract me with small talk, but his eyes kept flickering to his phone, to the windows, to the door. Even Luca's usual stoic calm seemed strained. "How long do these meetings usually last?" I asked around noon. "Depends," Marco said evasively. "Could be hours, could be days." Days? These families, they like to posture, make speeches, pretend they're civilized while threatening to gut each other. He shrugged. "It's all theater until someone makes a move." "And if someone makes a move against Alessandro?" Marco's smile was sharp and cold. "Then we burn their world down. Simple as that." The afternoon dragged. I tried to read, to watch television, to do anything that would quiet my racing thoughts. But every sound made me jump. Every minute that passed without word felt like an eternity. Finally, as evening painted the sky in shades of blood and gold, Marco's phone rang. He answered in rapid Italian, his expression growing darker with every word. When he hung up, the look he gave me made my blood run cold. "What happened?" "The Morettis brought evidence, proof that you were involved in something. I don't have all the details, but they're claiming you're not just an innocent civilian, that you have ties to their organization, that you stole from them." "That's insane. I've never even met any Morettis except those men on the street." "I know that. Alessandro knows that. But they have documents, witnesses, something that looks legitimate enough that the other families are listening." Marco ran a hand through his hair. "So similar to Alessandro, it hurt. He's fighting for you in there, but it's not looking good." "What does that mean?" "It means the families want you brought in for questioning, want to verify your identity, your background, make sure you're not some plant sent to weaken the Dante position. And if I don't go, then they'll come here. And innocent people, my brother included, will die in the crossfire." Marco's voice was grim. "Alessandro will never agree to it. He'd rather start a war than hand you over. But Emma, if there's a war, people we care about die. Our men, their families, civilians caught in the middle." The weight of it crushed down on me. "You're saying I should turn myself in?" "I'm saying I don't know what the right answer is. Alessandro would kill me for even suggesting it. But you're suggesting it anyway, because I love my brother, and I can see what you mean to him. If you go in there, Cooperate with their investigation. Prove you're exactly who you say you are. Maybe this ends without bloodshed. Maybe everyone walks away. Or maybe they kill me. Alessandro would never let that happen. He'd be there, fighting for you every second. Marco met my eyes. But the choice is yours. Stay here, safe but knowing a war is brewing. Or go, take the risk, and maybe end this peacefully. My father's voice echoed in my memory. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is sacrifice yourself for people you love. I thought about Alessandro's face this morning, about the promises we'd made in the dark, about the life we'd been building in stolen moments between danger, and I knew what I had to do. Take me to him. The meeting was held in a warehouse on the waterfront. Neutral territory, apparently, though the building felt anything but neutral. It reeked of salt and rust and old violence. Marco led me inside, flanked by 4 guards who looked ready to kill anyone who moved wrong. The main floor had been converted into something almost formal. A large table surrounded by men in expensive suits, each representing one of the 5 families that controlled the city's underworld. And at the head of the table, looking like vengeance incarnate, was Alessandro. His head snapped up the moment I walked in. For a fraction of a second, pure terror flashed across his face. Then fury, hot and bright. "What the hell is she doing here?" he demanded, rising from his chair. "She came voluntarily," Marco said quickly, "to answer their questions, to end this." "No." Alessandro's voice was granite. "Absolutely not. Marco, get her out of here, now." "Alessandro." I stepped forward, ignoring the way every man in the room tracked my movement. "Let me do this. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand that people will die if I don't. I understand that you'll start a war for me, and that war will destroy everything you've built." I moved closer, close enough to touch him. Let me prove I'm not their spy or plant or whatever they think I am. Let me end this. His hands gripped my shoulders, desperate. "If anything happens to you, then you burn the world. I know." I managed a small smile, but maybe it won't come to that. An older man at the table cleared his throat. How touching. The Dante boy has found something he cares about more than power. Alessandro's glare could have melted steel. "Careful, Moretti." So this was the head of the Moretti family. He looked like someone's grandfather, all white hair and kind eyes. But those eyes held the same coldness I'd seen in Alessandro's when he talked about his enemies. "We have evidence," Moretti said, gesturing to papers spread across the table. "That this woman, Emma Walsh, worked as a courier for our organization 6 months ago. That she stole a significant amount of money and information before disappearing. And now, conveniently, she's attached herself to you." "That's a lie," I said firmly. 6 months ago, I was working 2 jobs to pay for my father's cancer treatments. I've never been a courier for anyone. Then explain this." He pushed a photograph across the table. My breath caught. It was me. Definitely me. Standing outside a building I didn't recognize, holding a manila envelope. The timestamp showed a date from 7 months ago. I don't know where this was taken or what I'm holding, but it wasn't anything illegal. I've never stolen from you or anyone. Convenient memory loss. Moretti's smile was predatory. Or perhaps Alessandro put you up to this. Used you to infiltrate our operations, then claimed you as his own to avoid retribution. That's insane. Enough. Alessandro's voice cut through the room like a blade. "I've heard your accusations. I've seen your doctored evidence, and I'm done entertaining this theater." He turned to address the entire table. "Emma Walsh is mine. She is under Dante protection. Anyone who touches her, threatens her, or spreads lies about her will answer to me personally, not as part of some family dispute, but as a blood oath. My life for hers. That's the vow I'm making here, in front of all of you." Shocked silence filled the warehouse. "Alessandro, don't," I started, but his hand found mine, squeezing hard enough to hurt. "I've made my choice. Every family here knows what a blood oath means. Her enemies become my enemies. Her battles become my battles. And anyone who harms her." His gaze swept the room, lingering on Moretti. "Will face the full weight of Dante retribution. for generations to come. Moretti's face had gone pale. You'd stake your entire family's reputation on a girl you've known for weeks? I'd stake my life on her, and I am. Alessandro pulled me against his side, his arm iron around my waist. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to retract these accusations. You're going to admit this evidence is fabricated. And yes, I know it is, because I've had my people tracking Emma's entire life for the past 2 weeks. Every job, every credit card purchase, every moment of her time is accounted for. She's never been within a mile of your operations. He nodded to Marco, who placed a tablet on the table and pulled up documents, surveillance footage, time-stamped records. My entire life, laid bare. On the date of this supposed courier run, Alessandro continued, Emma was at City General Hospital, holding her father's hand while he underwent chemotherapy. I have security footage, medical records, witness statements from nurses. She didn't steal from you, Moretti. You fabricated this evidence to create a conflict, hoping the other families would force me to abandon her. But you underestimated how far I'm willing to go. Moretti's jaw worked. The other family heads exchanged glances, reading the documents Marco had provided. This is unprecedented, one of them, Castellano, I thought, said slowly. A blood oath for a civilian. She's not civilian anymore. She's Dante. She's mine. And I will go to war, with all of you if necessary, to protect her. Alessandro's voice was steady, absolute. So decide now. Accept that Emma is off limits and under my protection, or prepare for a conflict that will cost all of us more than you're willing to pay. The silence stretched, taut as a wire about to snap. Finally, Castellano spoke. The evidence does appear fabricated, and the Dante family has been fair in their dealings with us. I see no reason to pursue this further. One by one, the other families nodded agreement. Even Moretti, though his expression promised this wasn't over, acquiesced. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. The girl is yours. But know this, Dante. You've shown your weakness today, and weaknesses have a way of becoming liabilities. She's not my weakness. Alessandro's smile was dangerous. She's my reason. And that makes me infinitely more dangerous than I was before. We left the warehouse together, Alessandro's hand never leaving mine. His men surrounded us in a protective formation, weapons visible now, daring anyone to make a move. Once we were in the SUV, speeding back toward the penthouse, Alessandro pulled me onto his lap, burying his face in my neck. Don't ever do that again, he said, his voice muffled against my skin. Don't ever put yourself in danger like that. When I saw you walk in, I know. I'm sorry. But it worked. It could have gotten you killed, but it didn't. We're okay. We're both okay. I pulled back to look at him, cupping his face in my hands. You made a blood oath for me. I'd make 1,000 blood oaths for you. His eyes were fierce. I meant every word, Emma. You're mine. My woman, my future, my everything. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me, even though your world is violent and dangerous. Especially because of that. You'll never face it alone. You'll never be unprotected. Every resource I have, every man who answers to me, every ounce of power I possess. It's all devoted to keeping you safe, to making you happy. He kissed me, soft and deep. I love you. I should have said it before, but I'm saying it now. I love you, Emma Walsh. The words struck something deep in my chest, breaking open the last of my defenses. I love you too, I whispered. God help me. I love you. His laugh was relief and joy and triumph. Then we'll face whatever comes together. The Morettis, the other families, all of it. You and me, amore. Always. 3 months later, I stood in Alessandro's penthouse, our penthouse now, watching the sunrise paint the city in shades of gold. The Moretti threat had faded after several of their key operations mysteriously collapsed. Alessandro swore he had nothing to do with it, but the satisfied gleam in his eye told a different story. I'd returned to university, finishing my degree with a focus that surprised my professors. Turned out, when you weren't drowning in debt and exhaustion, academic work came easily. Alessandro had been insufferable about it, attending my presentations like a proud parent, bragging about his brilliant Emma to anyone who would listen. The other families had left us alone, accepting that I was off limits. Some had even sent gifts, awkward olive branches that Alessandro accepted with wary grace. And us? We'd settled into something that looked almost normal, if you ignored the armed guards and the occasional blood on his knuckles, and the fact that we were building a life in the eye of a hurricane. Arms wrapped around me from behind, and Alessandro's chin came to rest on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he murmured. "How different my life is now. How 3 months ago I was serving you risotto and thinking you were just another rich customer. And now? Now you're the man I love, the man who'd burn the world for me. The man who makes me feel safe and terrified and completely alive all at once." I turned in his arms. "My dangerous, beautiful monster." "Your monster," he agreed, kissing my forehead. "Forever." "Forever," I echoed. Outside, the city woke up to another day. People would go to work, fall in love, chase dreams, never knowing about the dark world that existed in their shadows, never knowing about the deals made in warehouses, the blood spilled in alleys, the empires built on violence and loyalty. But I knew. I lived in that world now, claimed by a man who'd taught me that love and danger were sometimes the same thing. That safety could be found in the most unexpected arms. That sometimes the scariest choice you could make was exactly the right one. Alessandro's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then silenced it, pulling me closer. "It can wait," he said. "Right now, I just want to hold you." So I let him. Let myself be held by this beautiful, dangerous man who'd stolen my heart the moment he'd asked if I was scared of him. The answer, I'd learned, was both yes and no. Yes, because loving Alessandro Dante meant living on the edge of chaos, never quite knowing when the next threat would emerge. No, because being his meant I'd never face that chaos alone. Being his meant having a protector who'd move mountains to keep me safe. Being his meant finding home in the most unexpected place. "I have something for you," Alessandro said suddenly, pulling back. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. My heart stopped. "Alessandro, it's not what you think. Not yet." He opened it to reveal a key. "I bought the building. The whole building. The penthouse is ours, but the other floors, I thought maybe you'd want to convert one into a gallery. Your gallery. A place where you can showcase the artists you believe in, create the kind of space you've always dreamed of." Tears pricked my eyes. "You bought me a building? I bought us a future. One where you're not just surviving but thriving. Creating. Shaping the art world the way you were always meant to." He cupped my face tenderly. "You gave up your dreams to take care of your father. You put your life on hold to survive. Now I'm giving you the chance to dream again. I don't need a gallery to be happy." "I know. But you deserve one anyway. You deserve everything, Emma, and I plan to spend our life together making sure you get it." I kissed him then, pouring everything I couldn't say into the connection of our mouths, gratitude and love, and the dawning realization that I'd found something precious in the last place I'd expected. When we broke apart, the sun had fully risen, flooding the penthouse with golden light. "So," Alessandro said, his smile soft and genuine, "my fierce, brave Emma. Are you scared of me now?" I thought about everything we'd been through. The danger, the blood oaths, the war we'd almost started. I thought about the man he was, violent when necessary, protective to the point of obsession, capable of terrible things in my name. And I thought about how he held me at night, how he encouraged my dreams, how he looked at me like I was the most precious thing in his world. "No," I said honestly. "I'm not scared of you anymore. I'm just yours." "Mine," he agreed, pulling me close. "And I'm yours, for whatever that's worth. It's worth everything." Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere, the Morettis were probably plotting revenge. Somewhere, new threats were forming, new challenges waiting to test us. The world Alessandro lived in, the world I'd chosen to join him in, would never be completely safe. But standing in the morning light, wrapped in the arms of a man who'd proved his love in blood and promises, and buildings full of dreams, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt home. And that was worth any risk, any danger, any storm that might come, because at the end of the day, I'd answered his question honestly that first night in the restaurant. I'd looked at a dangerous man and asked if I should be scared. The answer had been both yes and no then. Now it was simply, I'm yours. And in Alessandro Dante's world, being his meant I was untouchable, protected, loved, forever.